everyone, I'm Dr. Jing Liu from Shantou University Medical College. In this lecture series, we will talk about respiratory physiology. After finishing this chapter, you are expected to be able to first describe the sequence of events of inspiration and expiration, and explain the underlying mechanisms. Second, compare and explain the lung volumes and lung capacities. Third, state the principle of gas exchange and the influencing factors. Then explain the influencing factors for the dissociation curve of oxygen in the blood. Last, list and contrast the factors influencing the respiratory rate, depth, and their related chemoreceptors. The flower is so beautiful. However, its pollen causes difficult breathing of this boy. That is asthma. Without suitable treatment, he may die of asthma. Why was asthma fatal? How do we treat it? Let's explore the physiological mechanism related to breathing. Here are the learning objectives of this session. After learning, you should be able to describe the breathing cycle and explain the relative roles of respiratory muscles and lung elasticity during breathing. As a human being is large and constantly needs a certain amount of oxygen, the cardiovascular system pumps the oxygenated blood through our whole body, while the respiratory system ensures a constant adequate supply of oxygen. So, the first function of the lungs is to bring O2 in and CO2 out. And this process is called breathing or ventilation, which includes inhalation and exhalation. As the lungs do not have any intrinsic muscle tissues, they need help externally. The diaphragm is our main helper here. Under normal conditions, when you breathe in quietly, your diaphragm contracts and external intercostal muscles also contract to move the rib cage up and out, thereby expanding the volumes of the thoracic cavity. Hence, lung volume increases, resulting in low pressure in the lungs compared with outside. The difference in pressure causes the flow of air from high to low. Then the diaphragm and the external intercostals relax again, causing a decrease in lung volume. The higher lung pressure pushes the air out of the lungs. And this is quiet breathing cycle by cycle. So inhalation is active based on contraction of inspiratory muscles, and exhalation is passive when the muscles relax. How about forced breathing? For breathing in, the inspiratory muscles contract harder and more muscles are involved. Now take a deep breath and feel your neck. It becomes tight, right? And when you're breathing out, the inspiratory muscles contract to decrease the volume of lung and thoracic cavity. The respiratory system starts from your nostril to the bottom of your chest and can be divided into two portions based on their functions. Air goes into your lungs via a series of organs called the conducting portions. Besides conducting, it also warms, humidifies, filters, and cleans the air. The other is the respiratory portion, responsible for gas exchange. At the end of the respiratory tree, we have the alveoli. Each alveolus consists of two types of cells. Type 1 is a main cell type, which makes up the structure of the alveoli. Type 2 cells accounts for only 5%, but we cannot do without it, because they secrete surfactant to prevent the collapse of the alveoli. Here is the respiratory tree. The branchy pattern of the airway is similar to the vascular component. Please note, the airflow is not at the same speed everywhere in the respiratory system. The flow is faster in the larger airways. On the contrary, airflow is slower in the smaller airways. Do you all know why? This is because of the presence of resistance, which have two parts, elastic and non-elastic. The elastic resistance, including the surface tension and compliance, prevents air entering the lungs, but helps the air getting out of the lungs. The non-elastic resistance, the airway resistance, accounts for only 30% of the total resistance, but prevents the air both getting in and out. For elastic tissues, such as the lungs, the expansion will cause attractive forces, tending to oppose the expansion and bounce back spontaneously. This is called surface tension, abbreviated as T. These forces can create a collapsing pressure, which is negatively related to the size. So, if the surface tension is the same in these two alveoli, the collapsing pressure in the small one is 4 times the pressure in the big one. The air in the small one will be pushed to the big one, and the small one will collapse. To keep the different size alveoli in the lungs opened, type 2 alveolar cells secrete surfactant to reduce the surface tension. Finally, with the help of the surfactant, the pressure in alveoli of different sizes are the same. Interestingly, deep breathing needs more surfactant, and its secretion is increased. Another factor involved in elastic resistance is the compliance of the lungs and chest wall. It is a kind of ability to expand, calculated by the changed volumes per unit pressure, and it is inversely related to the stiffness of the lung tissues. For example, pulmonary fibrosis decreases lung compliance. The non-elastic resistance complies with the physical principle. The formula is the same we used in the cardiovascular system. The important factor is the radius of the airway. The airway resistance is negatively related to the force power of the radius. So a little change in the radius will cause a dramatic change in resistance, and this is determined by the contraction or relaxation of bronchial smooth muscle. Let's come back to the disease, asthma. Allergens like pollen stimulate the airways of asthmatic patients, causing the intense contraction of bronchial smooth muscle. Air cannot get into your lungs. It is an emergency condition, right? How do we treat it? We use medicines to relax the bronchial smooth muscle and dilate the airways. In summary, for respiration, different muscles are involved in the processes of inspiration and expiration for quiet or forced breathing. These two types of resistance perform different functions via different mechanisms. Here are the references. That's all for today. Thank you and see you next time.